Welcome to episode 58 of Cougars on Cougars. This is Randi. This is not Jess.
Not Jess, but happy to be here.
Welcome. If you're wondering where Jess is, no big deal. She's at the happiest place on earth. We beat Gonzaga, and what does she do?
She's going to Disneyland.
She's going to Disneyland. So we miss her, but we're happy to have Randi in. And we're coming into this week's episode off of one of the biggest wins in BYU basketball program history.
Number one, undefeated on the road, last game of the year. That's
Amazing.
going to be a hard one to top.
It is. The only way we could top it is by getting that auto bid. So, before we get to much talk about those things, we're going to start with our notable quotable, as always.
And our notable quotable this week comes from Richard G. Scott, who said, "To reach a goal you have never before attained, you must do things you have never before done."
Well, we did something that we've never done over the past weekend, beating, number one on the road. We've never beat a number one before, and we hope to do another thing that we've never done this weekend in Vegas.
Win the WCC tournament.
Yes. We are going to start this episode out with a special BYU edition of Mean Tweets that we've been really excited about, and I don't know if you guys watched, but they did this at the Oscars. We were planning to do it before we saw it at the Oscars, just for the record.
For some reason, people have a thing against BYU and BYU fans, but when we win, it really brings the haters out of the woodwork. So there was a collection before this game. It all went out the window. These are all fresh and new. Enjoy.
And thank you to everyone who read for us.
So we have Dan Ray Robinson, who says, BYU fans are as nice as missionaries, but are kind of dicks when it comes to sports. Well, Dan, I think you're a dick.
Honest truth, I think most BYU fans are worse than Laker fans. And that's really sad.
BYU stupidest team of white Mormons I've ever seen. Quit fouling, idiots. 29-1.
This is from Trevor at McBain's Goggles. I don't care how it happens, the important thing is that BYU fans are sad and their lives are worse.
JJ Hal says, BYU fans are the absolute worst people in the world. ... Have you met, any other fans?
At Utah Pig Bus says, BYU fans are those kids who always believe their parents when they're told they're going to Disneyland every time they visit the dentist. Come to think of it, I thought Albertsons was Disneyland until I was 7.
At Ellie Leaps at TJ Haas 30 is officially the Ron Weasley of college basketball. On Weasley. At Utes Are Us. Great game, Ichabod. Who's Ichabod?
At Real Kieran W. WTF wrong with you, bruh? You're bald at 20, looking like you're 37, bruh. Look like Dale Gribble without glasses, bruh. I don't see it.
Watching another BYU basketball game for some reason, and Nick Emery still sucks.
This mean tweet comes from The Slipper Still Fits. BYU is like your younger brother, younger sister, cousin, nephew, niece, grandson, granddaughter, stupid neighbor. They won't go away.
Ernesto Gomez says, virgins ruin everything except for the Virgin Mary. What do you think about that, Ernesto?
Smug West at WayTheKeed420 tweets, not all BYU fans are stupid. I've met some who can read and write, and they almost tip the scale on the side of average intelligence.
Cute dog, dude.
Mac Jones, aka at DMJ4th, says, I wish I could articulate the deep bone marrow, generational, basement level hatred I feel toward BYU. Hashtag BYU ruins everything. Passionate.
Thank you so much to everyone who took part in that video. It was super fun to make, and we look forward to doing it again soon.
Moving on to coaching from the couch, looking at our 2 big wins last week.
Yes.
We'll start with what went wrong, trying not to nitpick too much after 2 good games.
We should say that those 2 wins were one over Portland, 97-78, and the one over Gonzaga, which I'm sure no one forgot, 79-71.
But in case you couldn't indicate, my first thing that went wrong is something that's been kind of an issue all season, but it's becoming more obvious as we're fixing some of our other issues. We need to learn to keep our feet on the ground on defense. our players, too often they jump hard on fakes, get off the ground, and either they just get burned or it messes up the whole defensive rotation because someone has to cover the guy that they couldn't cover because they were in the air. I think as our guys learn to be a little more disciplined on defense and keep their feet on the ground, this defense is going to improve a ton, and it's already one of the more solid defenses BYU's had in a while.
Oh, yeah, defense hasn't really been our problem, but think if we could just shore up those little things
that little thing
that.
would make a huge difference.
Right. For me, and like Coach Stamos said, it is hard to nitpick, and we want to spend much more time on what went right. But foul trouble was prevalent in actually both road games. So there were 4 players who had 3 or more against Gonzaga, and Yoli fouled out against Gonzaga, which both Coach Stamos and we decided that like 3 out of the 5 fouls called on Yoli were not good calls, but still never good for someone. I mean,
we need him on the court.
Yes. And then against Portland, 5 players had 3 or more, and 2 players fouled out. So, and we sent Portland to the free throw line for 43 free throw attempts, which is far too many. It's nice that we won, but that's not always going to be the case when you're sending someone to the free throw line that many times. And TJ is one of the players who had 3 or more in both games. And you know what? We need his sharp shooting late in games, so we need him to remain out of foul trouble.
Absolutely.
Happier things?
What went right? I felt like this week they made huge strides in playing within the system, especially on offense. You could tell they had a plan, and they were executing that plan. A vast majority of the time, really, other than the first few minutes against Gonzaga, they were taking good shot selection. There was good ball movement. Their positioning on the court offensively and defensively was good. And then when things went wrong, they stuck with the plan. Even when guys got into foul trouble, they stuck with the plan. When Gonzaga would go on big runs, they would stick with their plan.
Which is saying a lot.
Yeah, they had a solid half-court offense, and especially at the end of that game, you could tell it was a very deliberate, conscious decision to slow it down and control the tempo, which isn't our usual strength, and they executed it perfectly.
Perfectly. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful. For me, in both games, and you guys know if you watched Cougars on Cougs that I've been waiting all season for it to be something other than a standout game for one person. And I think in both games on the road, we really had that. And it's kind of interesting because I think both games on the road were a standout game for one person. You had Elijah against Portland, who was amazing. And then you had Eric against Gonzaga, who was also amazing. But in other cases early in the season, it was just that.
And no one else even had a good game.
Right. And so when you have someone who has an amazing game and then a few people who have good games, look what happens. You beat Gonzaga. There were 3 players in double digits against Gonzaga, and Nick had 9, so we were very close to having 4 players in double digits. And we did have 4 players in double digits against Portland. And of course, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorites, Stephen Bayo, who was a bench player to reach double digits, which is huge stride for this team.
That hasn't happened in a long time.
Since LJ got injured, the bench points have dropped significantly, and so it was nice in both of these games to have points come from the bench.
Hey everyone, so I'm sorry I'm not on the show this week, but after that huge win against Gonzaga, we're talking about, hey, what are we going to do next? And we decided we had to come to Disneyland. So that's literally Disneyland right outside. So I wanted to at least give you my 2 cents about the game. Since it was such a big one, I wish I could be there to talk about it, but this is kind of the next best thing. Last week we talked about mental toughness. That was one of my things that I prescribed in our Doctor's In segment, that we needed to be better mentally. And one of the things I was so happy about was how in control we were in that Gonzaga game. We never got down, we never got discouraged. You didn't see guys get visibly frustrated. They knew that whole game that they were going to win it. They really believed it, and they pulled it off. So I think that's going to give such huge momentum going forward, going into the tournament next week, going into, even next season, just to have that group of guys play together that well, to believe in each other that much, and to pull off something like that. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. So congratulations, guys. It was a huge win. We are going to be talking about it forever. I'm never going to forget it. So congratulations, and I will see you on Saturday at the WCC tournament. Go Cougs.
We could go on about what went right in this game forever. I did just want to mention one last thing. Against Gonzaga, we shot 37% from 3, and they shot only 18. To hold Gonzaga, and you know what? I'm not even giving us too much credit. We held Gonzaga to 18%. We forced them to take the shots that they didn't want to take.
is watching that game, I think a lot of us assumed for BYU to win, BYU would have to play practically perfect, and Gonzaga would have to screw up. But watching that game, you didn't really feel like Gonzaga was playing poorly.
Yeah.
You just felt like we were playing well, but we weren't playing perfect. We just had a lot of guys playing solid.
Solid and tenacity on defense. Just stay on your feet. It's time for Talk of the Town, and as you can imagine, it's quite loaded because even though people were tweeting a lot more mean stuff about us than usual, people were also tweeting a lot more nice stuff about us than usual.
A lot of publicity this week.
But we're going to start with football because, let's be honest, we've been neglecting football a little in the basketball excitement, and I make no apologies because it's the end of February. There should be a lot of excitement about basketball right now, and the fact that there is a good thing.
And there isn't much football going on.
Yes.
So.
All right, so Randy, start us out. What's our first thing?
Our first big football story is that Tennessee and BYU added a home-and-home series. We'll play at Rocky Top in 2019 and in Provo in 2023. SEC schools don't do home-and-homes, and Tennessee does not come west of the Rockies. This is a big deal.
Yeah, like shout out to Tom Homo. That's amazing. Next, the football team did some team bonding last week, which I love to see. I think that bonding as a team is so important and helps your chemistry so much, and guys who love each other want to play for each other and want to win. So I think Coach Sataki has done a really good job cultivating that environment.
There's been a lot of that.
Yeah, they do a ton of team bonding. So this tweet is from AJ, and he said that they went paintballing, and that's a cute just picture of all of them. Anyone got paint all over them yet?
And it looks like it must be before. I like that they're all in their jerseys to paintball, too.
I know. Cute.
Spring practice started yesterday.
Hallelujah. Most people have a football void, and it's going to get filled a little.
As soon as basketball slows down, we'll have plenty to talk about.
So we had a few pieces of news come out of the first day of practice that we wanted to talk about. The first being that Dion Lake has changed his name. So I don't know if this will fit on the back of his jersey, and I don't know if any of us will be able to pronounce it, but it says BYU fans get used to a new name on the BYU roster, with cornerback Dion Ganawaloku changing his name from Dion Lake in 2017. I know I butchered that. I'm really sorry, Dion. I'm really sorry, everybody, but
when the pronunciation guide comes out, we'll get it right.
Yes.
Sione Takitaki is going to be rejoining the team, but It sounds like he is not actually in spring practice. It's been reported before, Moroni Laulu-Putatau has moved to tight end, although reports was he was lining up as a wide receiver, at least some, and we'll probably see him in more than one spot.
That'll be interesting. I like that. And then also, Matt Hadley is making the move from safety to running back, which is not much of a move at all. If you watch the episode of Cougs on Cougs where we talked to Spencer and Amanda,
his siblings, prolific running back in high school.
He was an amazing running back. And you can look up his highlights. I think we did look up his highlights, and it's like 28 minutes long, which is really long for a highlight reel, but that's how good he was. So I'm excited to see him at running back. I loved him at safety, and I think that speed is something that's really valuable at safety as well. So I don't know if he'll ever come in at safety or if he's like, what's going to go on with that.
If he's going to play a little on both sides.
Yeah, but it's probably a natural change for him.
It's probably a natural change, and that's probably a good sign for where we're at safety.
And Matt and Tanner, with their bromance, it might be fun for them to be on the same side of the ball.
Yes.
You know, talk about chemistry. We know they have it. Hello, Tanner got mad at painting. Moving on to basketball.
So if you haven't heard, Jimmer and Whitney Fredette welcomed a new daughter into their family.
Her name is Wesley James. Get over it. You can name your own kid and let them name theirs.
But we like this from Jackson Emery. He said, I told Jimmer Fredette we should arrange a marriage with his daughter and one of my boys. A perfect combo of offense and defense, right?
Usually,
#cutie.
Arranged marriages between kids really creep me out, but I'm okay with this one.
It just works so well.
Now we're going to kind of move into our win over Gonzaga section, which is the predominant section we've got here. So this tweet is from @Jake_Higgins, and he said, our ward bulletin guy was sick. I had to take over for today. Yes, I got it ready. And Randy, read some of those. He put the Cougar Fight song as the opening hymn for starters.
With Dave Rose giving the invocation, Nick Emery is the youth speaker, Eric Mika is a speaker.
Jimmer was doing something on there, right?
Jimmer also speaking, with closing hymn as Carry On, an actual hymn, but it works very well, and Tom Homo giving the benediction.
I mean, that's a good sacrament meeting. I think everyone would be translated right after. We haven't determined if he made one copy, he had to have made one copy of that and then handed the normal bulletins out, but if he made those and handed them out to everyone in his ward, major props.
The new AP poll came out yesterday.
Yes.
Gonzaga fell to number 4, which we think is ridiculous and unfair.
We do.
But hey, BYU got a vote. That's not the smartest voter in the world, but we will take it and love it.
It's not smart, but they earned our affection.
Yes.
Show yourself. We will welcome you into the fold. We loved this quote. This is from Tim Reynolds, who's an NBA writer, so familiar with Jimmer, of course. He said, "Of course BYU beat Gonzaga. You don't lose on Jimmer's birthday." Which, you know what? I'm so glad to be able to say.
It is true. And someone actually points out in the replies, they don't lose on Jimmer's birthday. It's good luck.
Wait, I didn't see that.
Yeah, apparently the days surrounding the day before and after Jimmer's birthday and his birthday, BYU is undefeated since he got here.
Hashtag Jimmer Magic. I used it jokingly, but apparently it's
works.
real.
This week, Elijah Bryant was WCC Player of the Week, and Eric Mika was NCAA Player of the Week. So you can't get Conference Player of the Week, get National. They both get their attention, and they both deserve it.
Pity prize for Eric, I guess. But that's amazing.
Very deserving.
For both of them, man. And I know Eric's gotten WCC Player of the Week 3 times at least, and I think this is the first time for Elijah. But it's so fun to have those two guys getting recognition because they both played their butts off last week.
Eli had 2 fantastic games. I think Eric got the national attention for the one game on the biggest stage.
Which he deserves
because absolutely.
It was incredible. Speaking of the national attention that win got us, SB Nation college basketball tweeted, "How many losses does Gonzaga have?" And of all people, it's Luke Worthington. Holding up the one.
We won't tell him he's not on the team right now, but a little name dropping as Mitt Romney sent out his message with congrats to my great nephew, BYU center Eric Mika, on his 29 points in the win Saturday versus Gonzaga.
You know, Mitt Romney isn't someone you would expect to name drop. I saw a funny tweet from Brett Barlow who was saying, that Mitt Romney's trying to catch on and get some of that NBA money, which is hilarious for obvious reasons. But okay, Randy has a story about this.
So Mitt Romney was at one of BYU's games earlier this season. He went down to the sideline to give high fives to the players after the game. And I happened to notice that when Eric came over, he gave him like this big, huge hug. And I thought that was a little interesting. Just figured maybe there was some sort of connection. Either that or Eric's just really, really friendly.
And Eric is really friendly.
But it all makes sense now.
And let's be clear. Great nephew, let's do this. So if your brother has a son, and then that son has a son, great nephew. Are you with me?
Yes, so your nephew's son is your great nephew.
You've got it. Speaking of Eric Mika, obviously everyone always makes the comparison between Eric Mika and Ivan Drago, and we totally see it. It's true. We don't even like to bring this up because it just gets so overplayed. Everyone that sees Eric ever says it, of course. But Matthew Sewell tweeted out, he said, "So BYU got Ivan Drago as their center. Thought for sure he'd be out of eligibility. And the reason we're acknowledging this one is because the face that he's making is almost identical to a face that Ivan Drago makes. So we made a little side-by-side photo that we'll put up here. It's pretty phenomenal. Is that his dad? Like, what's going on here?
It is an amazing connection. So there was one amazing celebration at the airport as the team came home, and they did not get home until nearly 2 in the morning.
I think it was about 2 a.m. And the game, by the time I had kind of wound down and was ready to go to sleep after the game, it was 1 a.m., which I wanted to go to this, but I'm a married old person.
Yeah.
That
was where I was.
I was so excited that I couldn't sleep, but I also couldn't stay awake, so I did not make it to the airport. You didn't go either?
No, I fell into that same boat.
But Bill Wright was there.
And he pointed out among the people there was Coach Kafusi, who had a huge pot of hot chocolate they were serving to the fans waiting at the airport.
I guess he does have a vested interest, with his son being on the team and everything. But so cool still to have a football coach there serving hot chocolate when he doesn't have any obligation to be there.
Yeah, even if he just showed up, to bring something for the students is a cool touch.
Yeah. And then this other one is from Bill also. He said, waiting to welcome the basketball team with Kalani Sataki, who was there at 2 a.m., our head football. That made me proud.
The day before spring ball starts.
The day before spring ball starts. And we don't have a picture, but we wanted to mention Reno Mahe was there acting a fool, getting in everyone's
front and center
face.
with all the students, as wild and crazy as anyone.
Yeah, of course. We just, how fun is that to have that love between the two programs?
It is so cool to see.
The last thing we wanted to end on in Talk of the Town, so the Oscars were obviously on Sunday, and we had a little bit of fun going on in BYU Twitter. Sports Outliers, that's his handle on Twitter, started the hashtag BYU Oscars, but this first tweet is from Mark Durant, and it's a picture of Coach Rose, and he said Best Director. After the Gonzaga game, that stall offense, I'll give him that award. I suppose that was Terry Nash. But best directing crew, for sure.
Absolutely. Sports Outliers also gives us his winner for Best Actor for his role in taking charges from opposing players, going to Nate Austin.
Who else? I thought that one was so good.
Hopefully we'll have someone who can challenge for that role coming up. But.
Yes. And then we have one more from Sports Outliers, and he said winner of Best Actor in a post-big play celebration goes to,
Peyton
Dastrup, of course. So check out that hashtag and check out his timeline if you want to see. He did a bunch more. Lots of fun with that. I love the mashups. Hello, Cougs and Ham.
Exactly, which
pop culture and BYU sports.
And the Cougs and Ham had some great opportunities this week. Check out that hashtag too if you want to see what's going on.
Okay, well, let's move into what's next. So, like we said, spring ball has started up, and the next really notable date for that is actually today. It's walk-on tryouts, so hopefully we've got some good talent coming up for those.
Also coming up this weekend is the WCC tournament on Saturday. BYU, who's clinched the 3 seed, will face number 6 LMU. Game tips at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. TV in a lot of potential places.
Yeah, I was kind of confused by this, but they said Spectrum SN, CSN Bay Area, Root Rocky Mountain, BYU TV, the W.TV, and Twitter. So we'll narrow that down for you, and we'll tweet out the For Sure channel on Saturday on game day, but it looks like you'll be able to find it somewhere.
It will be somewhere.
We did sweep LMU.
But it's tough to beat a train
kind of
every
makes
time,
me nervous because it is very and the first time we beat them we were down 18 and then came back to win on the road. I think we had a better time with them at home a little bit.
That's right, that was our big comeback, which was a good
practice
for this team.
Practice for when we were down 18-2 against Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully we will beat LMU 3 times in a row, which would get us to potentially face St. Mary's should they win their game, and then you face probably Gonzaga in the championship. So it should be a really fun weekend.
Semifinals
it's hard
Monday,
to beat a team twice, so maybe it's a good thing we got swept by St. Mary's in the regular season. Silver lining, but I don't want to jinx us. Let's get past LMU first. Knock on wood, one game at a time. As for our sponsors this week, our first sponsor is SportsCenter, which BYU pretty much owned for a few hours late on Saturday night, and all was right with the world.
It was wonderful. And our second sponsor is Air Mormon. You can get your Air Mormon t-shirt today via Kyle Collinsworth.
May you always stay loyal to the white and blue. For Randy, I'm Mary. We'll see you next week.